You have one precious life. How will you make your money work for you? It's time for Sage Money Conversations, where your financial happiness and confidence are always the subject. Here's your host, certified financial planner, Barbara Norman.
Welcome to Sage Money Conversations. I'm your host, Barbara Norman, and today we have Bertha Edington. Bertha is the owner and founder of Marketing Influence, a full-service marketing channel. And Bertha came on willing to share a story. It's a cautionary story that not many people will talk about. And Bertha, I want to thank you up front for being so wonderful. So Bertha's going to tell us the story about money and marriage. And I think so often, right, we get into marriages and growing up, our generation was told to be kind, to be gracious, to put up, shut up. And yet here you were, a really powerful woman in your marriage. You were the sole breadwinner. You had an inheritance. And then you had this husband. Tell us about you.
Yes. And I agree. It's a cautionary tale that hasn't been told the first time. And I'm happy to share it because I really feel that we need to, the more we talk about these things, the less taboo and shameful they become, and that we support each other. So I'm very happy to tell my story. I'm not happy about the story. So just to make it clear, when we got married, we were both working and we both had very well-paying jobs, and decided at one point to stop doing those and to try opening a company. And so we did that. And we did that, I don't know, for about 5 or 6 years. And it was a lot of hard work. We were the territorial franchisors for a fast food chain, which means we sold territories and stores to other people. But we ended up having our own, wanting to demonstrate. And it was really a lot of work, and it didn't work, unfortunately, for a variety of reasons. So eventually we let that go. We held on to that too long. And following that, we started another company that was more in line with what our careers had been, which is in sales and marketing. And that lasted for far too long. And that's sort of my problem with this whole thing. I guess part of the money, I knew most of what was happening with the money, and I could see it, on the handwriting on the wall. Although after the divorce, proceedings began, I was very surprised to find out a few things I didn't know, that I thought I was aware of. But during the time of the second business, I wasn't unaware of what was happening. I was just kind of told I was, not in these exact terms, but with this intention that I was the little lady and I would figure it out someday and not to worry about it. And
so what was happening? Like, tell us what was going on that you were kind of ignoring?
Yeah, well, the money, we were bleeding money. We were paying people that we couldn't pay. We weren't paying ourselves. We had staff that obviously couldn't afford. We were not getting new clients. We were losing existing clients.
Wow.
And we would review, the money. And I would say repeatedly, well, this doesn't add up. I mean, we can't go on like this, guys. We were putting all of our own money into it, all of our savings, all of everything we had. And it was my timidity, I think, although we're learning not to judge ourselves, but my hesitation, shall we say, to just really early, way earlier than I should have, put my foot down and say, this is not acceptable and we need to do something else. As a matter of course,
it just kept you from having those conversations.
I think, well, I am 65 years old, and you're supposed to act with shock and awe at this point.
You don't look it at all.
Thank you. And I was 60 when I actually finally left him. And I was of an age when we didn't, the guy ran the show.
Yeah.
And that was the deal. And you were supposed to do what he said, within reason. I mean, I wasn't raised to let a guy beat you or, abuse, but there was abuse in that situation, certainly psychologically and emotionally, with the implication that I didn't understand. I just wasn't smart enough to see what was going on, that kind of thing. That combined with it having been my second marriage and feeling like I really was committed and I really didn't want to fail at this. And so kind of sticking with that and just really not following my gut. My gut was screaming the whole time, this is wrong. I mean, I can see the money going away. That's where you mentioned earlier, I had an inheritance. That's where it went.
I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, me too. But lessons learned. And again, I'm happy to share because I know women who are younger than I am and don't know how their money is being managed. And when I grew up, it was more common to let the guy run the show. And I am afraid for younger women who don't know how their money is being managed, who are married, and watch them in increasingly unhappy marriages and just afraid for what's going to happen to them. So that's why I'm happy to share my story with people.
And it's huge because I think a lot of women do. They take care of the household, they take care of the kids, like they're the CEOs of home, where men seem to be the CEOs of the investments in the company. And it's this mindset that's really kind of not healthy at all. I think you both need to be, co-CEOs in what each other is doing. And that's hard to do. It's hard to broach that subject because I think, and I'm stereotyping and I shouldn't, but I guess anybody wouldn't like to be questioned about what they're doing by their spouse. And it's not really an intention of second guessing the person or being suspicious of the person. It's just how to be in the know. And I think those are tough conversations to have.
Well, and I also think it's a partnership, which, we talk about partnerships, but unfortunately, those aren't always real in our society today in marriage. And I can add to the story that we had an investment a financial counselor at one time and also our CPA, and they were both men, and they were both bonded with my husband. And so when I would come in over on the side with my questions, it was like, really, it was almost like being patted on the head. Little lady, it's okay. He's got it, So I really, really caution people. I've been very, very fortunate because, as I said, when I left him, I was 60 years old, which you can imagine with no savings, no anything. What I had was my company that I had started a few years prior to my leaving him, which he was really unhappy about. He wanted me to put it as an umbrella under the existing company that was failing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So he could contain control, and there were pitched battles about that and counselors involved. And finally, he very resentfully allowed me to do that. So fortunately,
oh my gosh. Yeah, you stood up for yourself for the first time. It sounds like, yay.
So fortunately, by the time I left, I had work and I had clients, so I wasn't bereft. And I was very fortunate that I had a very kind and generous family member who gave me a nest egg and helped me realize that I could move forward. And I think one of the most difficult things that comes out of this, and you see this, and now being out of it, I realized my self-esteem was just eroding and eroding and eroding and eroding and eroding and eroding to the point where I didn't have any. And, I was confident with my clients, but as far as myself and who I was and meeting other people. And I was just very not happy with myself, not happy with myself at all. And, I'm sorry, it looked like you wanted to ask something.
Well, no, it's a tough one. And it's sad how we define our self-worth in terms of our net worth, because certainly that's not you at all. And yet, how do we not do that? How do we come out of that?
Well, and that's another reason I feel strongly about sharing the story, because my family did not know what was going on.
Mm.
They liked my husband, and I was too embarrassed to tell them what a disaster things were. And I was trying to be the good wife. And they were frankly shocked when they found out the depth of what was happening. And so that was sort of the last, shred of self-esteem I was trying to hold on to, is keep it a secret and at least let people think everything's okay. And is really wrong. So as I said, here I'm 60 years old and I got nothing, fortunately, except for my business, which I still have. And thank you for my clients who I love, and I'm very successful. But I didn't have enough cash, certainly, to even begin to consider retirement. And I had talked to, I read like every woman does. I read Sue Zorman and watched her show. And frankly, that made me feel worse.
Oh my gosh. I'm glad you said that, because I watch people call in and they get humiliated by this woman, excoriated by this woman.
Yeah,
It's always been my thought that if Dr. Laura and Howard Cosell ever procreated, they'd probably have this offspring called Susie Orman, because she is so arrogant and so mean.
Yeah. And really, it made me feel worse. I felt like a fool. I felt like there was never any chance of getting any self-esteem back. I was according to her, I'm in a hole so far down, I can't come out, and I'm probably not worthy of it, was my takeaway from, reading her books and listening to her. And she's clearly not a stupid person, and does know some things that she's talking about, but her approach was so off-putting to me. I felt worse. And fortunately, I found someone, yourself, that has a completely different approach. And it was for the first time I can honestly say, I'm going to teary-eyed, in 15, 20 years, that I felt like I wasn't worthless. Oh. Like there was hope, that it was okay, that I felt not judged, but uplifted and empowered to carry on.
What caused that shift for you?
Well, it was an attitude. You helped me understand that, there's always hope. There's always a way to look at things there, that there's always things we can do, that there are people worse off than I am, that we can help them too. And I think especially as women, that we owe it to each other to reach out to each other and help empower each other in whatever way we can. Sorry, getting all.
Well, it's true. It's true. There's actually some studies that say if you're optimistic about your financial planning, the more optimistic you are, the more successful you are. And here you are, you're kind of my case study in that, of when you thought you were down and out and destitute and couldn't do it. Oh, what the heck, just give up. But that's never the case. We can always pick up and start from anywhere, and it's never, ever, ever too late.
Well, and I can tell you, honestly, my self-esteem was so gone, so non-existent, that I felt like I couldn't even go out on a date. My friends were, bugging me. Oh, come on. Okay, let's fix you up. And I felt like I wasn't worthy, because somebody would find out what a loser I was, because I had screwed up and left all this, lost all this money. And I don't know if I'm 100% ready, but I'm feeling better about it now. So
it's always one step, you just one step in front of the other, and then you get there. And so here you are at that age of wisdom. Looking back at your younger self, if you could put Bertha, younger self, in the chair across from you, what are some of the tips? What would you say to Bertha to maybe help her not do this so roughly, or how to do it better? What would you say to your younger Bertha?
I would say, first of all, to my younger Bertha, and I will say this to every younger person and older person and anybody who's in academia out there, we need better financial training. And for both young men and young women, I feel very strongly about that. I remember being in high school where they taught us, okay, we're going to teach you how to make a budget and, you have to schedule your rent and blah, blah, blah. And then we even went through this ridiculous fake marriage thing. I know it was absurd, but it didn't teach you anything about interest rates and what to pay off and what to look for in contracts and, what to, everybody always tells you, make sure you read everything. Well, if before you sign it, you can't necessarily read all the legalese. Mm-hmm. So we need some training. I think everybody starting from a young age needs some training. And the other thing I would tell my younger self is trust your gut. Trust your gut. Stop listening to other people telling you you're in a good marriage and aren't you lucky and you're so happy together. And if you're crying yourself to sleep and don't want to get out of bed in the morning, something's wrong.
Something's wrong. Yeah. Listen to your authentic self.
Yeah. That would be my offering to other people. And I would be happy, as you are so generous, I would be happy to mentor people in any way I can. And I do in my position as a marketing person. I've taken on interns and trainees. And I think we have a responsibility to share our gifts with everybody else.
You are so right. We do have an obligation to share our gifts. And also, I think in that is building your community. It's those people around us that are going to hold us up, that are going to pull us out of these rough situations, help us define a new self, a new reality, a new joy, a new way to do life. So yeah, building our community, mentoring, huge, huge, huge.
Yeah, no, building the popular word today is tribe. And building our tribe is really important. I remember I did have clients and I was successful for quite a few years, and I decided to change my business. I had been working for many, many years in marketing, and I build websites and do things for people, and everybody has a right to earn money. So it's, selling widgets is just as important as something else. But I had made a conscious decision to shift and let go of some kind of clients that I felt were not appropriate for where I wanted to be, and look for clients who are deliberately want to help make the world and other people better.
Oh, I love that.
It was a tough shift. It was a conscious shift, and it took a long time. And I remember a few years ago, I'll never forget sitting in a coffee shop with a couple of friends crying, saying, I don't know how I'm going to make rent next month. I'm not sure. And it was the support of those people and people like yourself that got me through, and now those friends and yourself and all my wonderful support group celebrate me all the time. And it's like, yay, look how far you've come. You're making it work. And I'm very grateful, very, 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 very grateful. And I'm
really seeing a beautiful theme here, because in your business, it sounds like you have taught yourself to do something that you couldn't do in your marriage. And that was to say no to something you didn't want, to say, no, I can do better. And hard as it is, to turn those things away and open yourself up to some good new things coming in that do make your heart sing, that make you feel like a worthwhile, active, wonderful human being. And I love how you do that in your marketing. It's really fun to see.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting for you to put it that way. I had never thought of that, but I worked for a few years for some people I just were not in tune with where I wanted to be. And I did. I said, I'm not going to wait any longer. I can't, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life doing this. So I'm very, very grateful, but we can't do it on our own. I don't think we can do it on our own. I rely on my support team and which are all my friends and my loved ones. I'm really grateful to have found you. And for the first time, because we start out being judged by our parents, right?
Right.
I remember my dad, bless his heart, he's a good man. He told me not to worry about it. I should get married and be taken care of. And if I really wanted, I could probably be a school teacher, something like
school teacher, nurse, secretary.
Yeah. Something like my mother made sure I knew how to take dictation. Actually, at that time, I learned how to do that. So so that they weren't the highest, most supportive aspirations. And it was a question of the time. I'm not bitter or angry, but it's a question of the time. And what concerns me now is I see younger people still not necessarily breaking out of that mold. In there, at least financially, I think parents are more supportive than they used to be, but I think that we don't have the financial education. And as I tell my clients, they hire me to do their marketing. And that's because their core competency is something else. Mm-hmm. And so why waste their time or, energy doing something they're not very good at? I do educate them so they understand what's going on. So I'm not ripping them off. And, we have a collaborative plan. But I would say the same thing to people about money. If that doesn't have to be your core competency, just make sure you're getting the support you need.
Well, I think you've touched on a lot of really important things, is that growing up, we don't talk about money. People are shamed by their money. If, we always hear about, we hear about a lot of things, and they might tell you about the stock they bought that went through the roof or went through the floor, but they don't talk numbers. It's more of a bragging right than it is a real conversation. And so, our parents don't talk to us about money. It's not something that ever involved the kids, which is unfortunate. Even in marriages, I think a lot of people have very difficult times talking about money. And so here you are, you've been so wonderful, so vulnerable with us, just raw. And I appreciate that. And really opening up those conversations with friends and saying, hey, I'm in a hole. Here's what's going on. Someone help me. I mean, we just don't do that. And so, Bertha, I appreciate you doing that today. And hopefully, in our tribe, in our girlfriends, we will reach out more to each other and talk more about money and help each other. This has been a wonderful conversation. If you could leave us with any one pearl of wisdom, Bertha, what would it be?
Yikes. Pay it forward. No matter how little you think you have, you always have something. You have flowers growing in your garden that you can cut off and give to a neighbor. You have, $10 you can give to somebody who's worse off than you are. Just keep paying it forward. Keep the energy and momentum going.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Bertha, we are going to put a link into this so people can find you in your marketing, because the heart that you just shared with us, I know that that's the heart in your marketing, your websites, your social media. And so, hopefully you guys will reach out to Bertha if you just want to kind of have that special place in life, because she's done the hard knocks, God knows. Here she is, just giving her whole heart to us. And so thanks, Bertha.
Thank you very much. And thank all of you who are listening. I appreciate it and wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Advisory services are offered through Barbara J. Norman, LLC, an investment advisor in the states of California and Texas. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell, nor an offer to sell advisory services to any residents of any state other than the state of California, or where otherwise legally permitted. All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decisions. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness and does not purport to be complete analysis of the materials discussed. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of SagePath Solutions and are subject to change without notice.